Well, hello there, this is David with Electric Monkey Garage. Today we're going to make a video about changing hydraulic hose on a Hyster forklift. But first, we want to cover a few safety aspects. Forklifts are very plentiful throughout the world. Most things we touch is possibly been picked up by a forklift, so they're in every country. They're even on large ships. A lot of operators and a lot of people working on forklifts, and a lot of accidents with operators and mechanics working on forklifts. So we need to be safety conscious. Just like place I work, you get called in the office, the boss had a question for you, and the question was, what can we do to ensure this does not happen again? Well, when you're safety conscious, our mindset should be, what can we do to make sure this doesn't ever happen, much less happen again? So I want to cover about 3 things or so pertaining to our forklifts. Of course, a lot of your standard things, steel-toed shoes, safety glasses, gloves when appropriate, spills. Spills are fluids that make it to the ground and they cause slip hazards. So some companies it's not that big a deal, but yet most companies it is. We need to try to catch the fluid when possible, or clean it up as soon as possible so that it's not a slip hazard. Plus, you know, you don't want to make the area inappropriate to walk. Pinch points. Pinch point is any area that if you placed any part of your body, it would pinch it. And you don't want to get pinched and you don't want anything cut off, so you need to be aware of what a pinch point is. A pinch point is something to avoid. If it's possible, you just don't put your fingers there or any part of your body. We want to be aware of pinch points. When we have our forklift, the forks are usually attached to the carriage. And when the carriage is raised and you need to work underneath the carriage, or possibly the forks, first, if at all possible, just go ahead and remove the forks. But if the carriage is raised and you're going to be underneath it, then there's certain aspects of the mast that need to be chained off and strapped. Chained off or strapped so there's no movement. The older forklifts, if a person was to walk up and move the lever, the lower lift lever, then the carriage would come down. The newer models of lifts are controlled by wires, and usually when the key's off, you're not going to be able to lower the carriage or the mast. But there's still plenty of those older models out there that when the key's off, you can lower the mast. So if there's that possibility of that happening, then you definitely need to chain it off. Anytime you're under the carriage, you need to support it. There's places to put pieces of wood, and there's methods of chaining off the mast, and most of your shop manuals will explain this to you. So it's a way of being safety conscious and being aware of your pinch points, and to avoid any type of pinch points. Look at my cheat list here. There's a lot of safety aspects having to do with forklifts, and I could dedicate a whole video to it, but this time I just want to cover a few things, but mainly just to make you aware that anytime you're operating or working on a forklift, there's a large potential for accidents. So we need to be very safety conscious when we're working on our forklifts. So let's get to our footage of our hose replacement on the Hyster. Hyster S80XM. Hyster S80XM. We're going to work on the hose. We got a leaking hose. We need to replace the hydraulic hose on this Hyster. First, we're going to take off some brackets. Disconnect the two hoses at this location right here. The hoses run over the pulley, down, another bracket, spring protector, another bracket, and up to the top pulley. Here we are, removing another bracket. Here we're going to remove the JIC hose fitting. Exactly what JIC stands for, I'll have to research and try to edit that in, but we have a 15/16 wrench that we're using on this JIC fitting, and what's common, what you'll find working on a lot of forklifts, is the one hose right next to it is actually a smaller size. This is a 15/16 wrench, whereas the other fitting is a 7/8. Different hose manufacturers might use different fittings, but usually the JIC fitting has a specific number, and that's what you're going for. The dealership wanted about 4 times more for the hose than our hose supplier. What I mean by hose supplier is they will make up the hose for you. So we're taking off the hose and we're going to take it to the hose supplier, and he's going to measure it and make us another one. Coming off, not such a big deal, but going back on, I always make sure that my fitting will thread on finger tight, thread on with my fingers before I start tightening it up, because it's somewhat easy to cross thread some of these hydraulic fittings. Now we're going to wrestle the hose through the hose sheave, maybe. I think we're going to replace this hose sheave. It has a bad place right here. It's a bad place in the hose sheave, so we will be replacing the hose pulley or the hose sheave. This is plastic hose sheave, and so we're just gonna wrestle the hose off of the lift. And when you're working with hydraulic hose, you have to make a mental picture in your mind about how it comes off. It's usually exactly the way it goes back on. We have loosened up the hose sheave bracket, and we're going to attempt to remove a snap ring, which is the retainer for this hose sheave. Bing! There it went flying. Well, I guess we'll have to look for it. Here is our hose sheave, washer, and snap ring. We're gonna go take the hose and have a new hose made and pick up the hose sheave that's going to be replaced. This is our new hose sheave. It seems to be a little bit bigger. Hopefully it'll work.
I wonder if that's the same manufacturer.
There's our new hose. Fix it, slap it back on. Okay, we're going to connect up the new hose. It's a good habit to wipe off the surface, the mating surfaces of the hose. Make sure there's no debris when you join the two hoses together. Like I said earlier, I want to start the hoses by hand. And when you start them by hand, you're less likely to get them cross-threaded. I'm trying to do this and hold the camera at the same time. I'm trying to do it without setting up the tripod. I have a tripod, but there's a lot of there it goes. Nope, that wasn't it. It has to be precisely in line when you get the hoses. When you join the hoses together, they have to be straight. If they're not straight, they're going to cross thread. Try to use my good hand here. Glory. I got it. Okay. And I'm gonna put the wrenches on there. This particular hose, you want one wrench here, and maybe one wrench here, and then the wrench here, depending on what you're doing. When you tighten it up, you can twist the hose by having a wrench on here, but when you tighten this piece up, this part of the fitting, then it's going to lock the rotation of the hose. Sometimes if the hose is curving a particular way, you can turn it here and then tighten it up here, and it'll take a kink out of the hose. I slid the sheave out, and now I'm sliding it back. And I'm going to place the washer and the snap ring right here momentarily. I put in the new sleeve. I have installed the new sheave and the washer. And here goes the snap ring. There we go. Sorry about that. We've already hand started the fitting, and now we're tightening it up with the 7/8 inch wrench. If you notice, we got the same manufacturer of hoses. Normally when you have a hose like this, two hoses side by side going across the same sheave, you replace both hoses at the same time. This particular instance, we're just doing one hose. You don't have to tighten most of these hydraulic hoses very tight. You just want to get a good snug, what I call snug, but you don't want to have to grunt very much to tighten it. I've been turning a lot of wrenches, so my hands are pretty strong, but traditionally I think a lot of folks over-tightening the fittings, or over-tightening the fittings. This is the Hyster we replaced the hose on. S80XM-BCS. This is the hose we replaced. This is the new sheave. There's another sheave up here. Both of the sheaves were held with snap ring and washers. This is the new hose, that's the old hose. As you can see, this new hose is looking good and the old hose kind of cracked. Over here we have some more hoses and they seem to be cracked. Crack does not necessarily mean leaks, but cracks mean they're getting old. So we're wrapping up this job. We cleaned the floor a little bit. done. Pay the man. Woo-hoo! This is David wrapping up today. Fixed 2 forklifts today. Worked on a Caterpillar. I fixed the horn. I fixed an aspect of the tilt cylinder, and we put a new hose on the Hyster. I get dirty when you work on forklifts. It's just the way it is. I used to wear a uniform, now I just wear regular stuff. See ya.
I just reached up here.
It's monster time. Red monster. Doesn't get no better than that. Woo.